Hello, everyone. I am the Reverend Point Blank, and welcome back to the Voices of the Diaspora. This segment is about addiction, dopamine. In the quiet depths, a battle stirs inside. A whisper pulls me close, a wave that I cannot hide. I breathe in stillness, watching thoughts arise. I reach for help, I open up, I rise. The weight of the past, it pulls, but it does not bind. I find a steady breath to calm my mind. Each craving comes, but I don't face it alone. I walk this path with others that I am known. So step by step, though slow, I heal. In each small pulse, I learn what's real. I am the calm within, no longer just a wave. I choose my freedom. I choose to be brave.
So think about when you're driving down the highway, right? And your check engine light suddenly flashes red. You usually don't try to negotiate with the dashboard.
Right, yeah, you don't just, white knuckle the steering wheel and grit your teeth and try to force that little light to turn off through sheer mental discipline. You pull over.
Exactly.
You recognize that there's an actual mechanical reality under the hood that needs to be addressed.
But when it comes to our own brains, specifically those random overpowering cravings to just eat a whole sleeve of cookies or
the urge to scroll through social media for like 3 hours when you really should be sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. We suddenly think we can just yell at the dashboard. We think we can brute force our way out of our own biology, which is why today, for this deep dive, we aren't just talking about the vague concept of willpower.
Right.
We are opening the hood on your brain's dopamine engine to figure out exactly why your cravings are hijacking you. And, well, more importantly, how to put you back in the driver's seat. Okay, let's unpack this. What are we looking at today?
So we're pulling some really fascinating insights from a piece called The Reverend Point Blank, Breaking the Dopamine Trap. It actually originated from the Take It to the Nine podcast, which is brought to you by the Voices of Diaspora. And, the author's background here is super crucial.
Yeah, it really frames the whole thing.
He goes by the Reverend Point Blank. He was born and raised in Chicago, or the Chi, as he calls it. And he talks openly about using his street hustle and his grind to travel the world and share what he calls this gospel of truth.
Which is what makes reading his work so refreshing. I mean, it doesn't feel like you're slogging through some sterile clinical study. It reads more like a survival manual written by someone who has, actually been in the trenches.
Exactly.
He blends this really raw, hard-earned life experience with some surprising neurobiology. And we should probably clarify right out of the gate, this isn't just about severe substance addictions, right?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I want to step in here and make that very clear. The mechanics he describes apply to any everyday compulsion that you might face.
Like the 3 in the afternoon sugar craving.
Right. Or the urge to check your email 50 times a day or constantly refreshing your notifications. The stakes here are high for the everyday person. If you've ever laid in bed feeling terribly guilty because you just didn't have enough willpower to stop a bad habit, well, this deep dive is going to completely change how you view your own brain.
Because before we can learn how to beat a craving, we really have to understand why our traditional methods for fighting them just fail so miserably.
And the source material hits this point hard. Point Blank argues that fighting or resisting an addiction or a craving actually makes it 10 times stronger.
Wait, really? 10 times?
Yeah, the very thing society has drilled into us, just fight the urge, just be disciplined, is actually the exact thing supercharging the problem. He says addiction is not a sign of low willpower. It's not a lack of discipline or weakness.
So what is it then?
The core biological truth under all of this is that literally everything your brain does is based on survival.
Yeah.
Just like hunger drives you to food, right? And thirst drives you to water. The brain physically tags certain behaviors as increasing your survival.
Okay, I'm struggling with this premise a bit.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, oh, it's not a lack of willpower. But when I eat a donut that I explicitly promised myself I wouldn't eat, I feel incredibly guilty.
Sure, of course you do.
My conscious mind knows I don't need it. Are you saying the underlying structures of my brain are literally tricking me into thinking a glazed donut is keeping me alive? Like a life or death survival necessity?
That is precisely what is happening. And it really comes down to the primitive brain's massive blind spots.
Yeah.
The source details this beautifully. The deeper, older parts of our brain cannot differentiate a hit of cocaine from the feeling of comfort.
Wow.
They literally can't tell the difference between drinking alcohol and actual natural stress relief.
Because the primitive brain doesn't know what high fructose corn syrup is, or what a smartphone is. It just registers the internal chemical shift, right?
Exactly. You eat a highly processed, sugary donut, your brain instantly receives massive caloric energy and a spike of pleasure. The primitive brain doesn't sit there and analyze the long-term health consequences.
Right, it doesn't care about your diet plan.
No, it just notes that your internal environment suddenly feels energized and safe. Therefore, it decides this external object is a high-value survival resource. The examples in the text are great, like gambling promises resources with less effort. Pornography mimics reproduction, which is an internal survival drive. Once the brain logs that chemical shift, it decides you need this thing to not die.
So if the brain is just blindly logging these chemical shifts as survival necessities,
Right.
what are the actual chemicals doing the logging? Because this brings us to what might be the biggest misconception in popular psychology right now, the dopamine trap.
Oh, this is massive. If you ask anyone what dopamine is, they will almost universally tell you it's the pleasure chemical. But the source corrects this entirely. Dopamine does not give you pleasure.
Wait, hold on. So when people talk about, chasing a dopamine hit because they want to feel good, they're actually aiming at the wrong target.
Completely mislabeling the experience. Dopamine is actually the fine tuner, or what neuroscientists sometimes call the tagger.
Okay.
Its evolutionary job is to tag a substance or a behavior as critical for survival. It creates the motivation, the anticipation, the craving that gets you off the couch.
So what gives you the pleasure then?
The actual pleasure you feel initially, that comes from a completely different set of chemicals called opioids.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let me see if I can map this out with an analogy. So the opioids are the amazing party you went to, but dopamine is the brain's GPS system, saving the location of that party as a crucial safe house.
Yes, that's exactly it. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, here is the brutal physiological shift that happens over time. If you keep repeating the behavior, your brain gets overwhelmed by that flood of opioids.
Because it's too much pleasure, right?
Right. And to protect itself from burning out, a process called homeostasis, the brain actually shuts down its own opioid receptors. Over time, if you keep doing the habit, the pleasure just goes away.
Like building a tolerance to spicy food. Eventually, the same amount of hot sauce doesn't even register on your tongue.
Precisely. You stop getting the high.
Cool.
But here's the kicker. The dopamine tagging doesn't fade. It actually gets stronger. It remembers that this behavior is a survival necessity. And then a third chemical enters the equation. Glutamate.
Ah, glutamate. The text refers to glutamate as the gas pedal. Right?
Yes, glutamate is the chemical that gets you activated, physically pushes you into action. So look at the state of the brain now. The pleasure from the opioids is gone. But the dopamine is still screaming that this behavior is a life or death necessity. And the glutamate is mashing your foot down on the gas pedal to go get it. All you are left with is this aggressive drive, and all you get is just relief from the withdrawal.
So going back to my analogy, opioids are the party, dopamine is the GPS, and glutamate is the gas pedal forcing you to drive back to that house long after the party is actually over.
Yes. Repetition causes the dopamine and the glutamate to spike higher and higher, creating abnormal body sensations. The urge transforms from a casual, I want it, to a desperate, I need it.
Okay, so what does this all mean for us practically? If the brain views this behavior as a literal biological need, what happens to our nervous system when we just try to grit our teeth and say no?
Well, this brings us to the fight or flight backfire. It is deeply counterintuitive, but if you ignore the urge, if you try to fight it or resist it, you are signaling to your primitive brain that something is preventing you from surviving.
You're telling the brain, hey, I know you think we need this to live, but I'm not going to let you have it. So the body just absolutely panics.
The body turns the dial all the way up. It kicks your fight or flight system into high gear. Now your brain is pumping out cortisol, the primary stress hormone. You start experiencing intense physical symptoms.
Like what? What kind of symptoms?
The text mentions things like a tight chest, severe anxiety, or this intense muscle pressure and restlessness. You become physically agitated.
So if fighting it spikes our cortisol and makes the physical pressure worse, doesn't that mean the standard societal advice to just say no is actually biologically rigged to fail?
That's exactly what it means. You are throwing gasoline on a fire. When you try to aggressively resist a glutamate and dopamine spike, the physical agitation gets so intense that giving into the bad habit is no longer about chasing a high.
Right, because the opioids are gone.
Exactly. Giving in becomes entirely about relieving the physical withdrawal symptoms that your own fight or flight system just generated.
You just want the tightness in your chest to stop. You just want the buzzing to quiet down.
Right. Which is exactly why Reverend Point Blank's solution is so brilliant. It bypasses mental toughness entirely. It goes straight for physiological de-escalation. You can't outthink a glutamate spike. You have to disarm it.
Since we can't outthink it, how do we actually do that in the moment? Because this brings us to Point Blank's practical 1-minute method, and it's a 4-step technique to bring those spikes down. Let's walk through this.
Okay, let's apply it. Say it's 3 p.m, you're at your desk, and you were hit with this overwhelming urge to go eat a candy bar. Your chest feels tight, the glutamate is pushing the gas pedal. Step 1. Before you move, rate the intensity of the compulsion on a scale from 0 to 10.
Just give it a number.
Exactly. Let's say it's an 8.
Okay. Step 2. You locate the sensation in your body and you physically point to it. Like you take your finger and point to your chest or your stomach or your head.
Right. Then, step 3. You describe it specifically to yourself. Don't just say, I feel bad. Is it a pulling feeling? Is it pressure? Is it a restless vibration? Give it words.
And then step 4. You go back to step 1 and re-rate it. You look at where it is in your body now and describe it again. And the text claims that when you do this, you'll notice the intensity drop. An 8 becomes a 5. The location might shift and the character of the feeling changes.
And what's fascinating here is the mechanics of why this works. When a craving hits, it's this vague, overwhelming, full-body sensation. But by rating it, locating it, and describing it, you are forcing a massive shift in your brain's blood flow.
Oh, wow. So you're actually altering your brain physically in that moment.
Yes, you are pulling energy away from the primitive survival centers that are panicking and activating the logical, analytical part of your brain.
Yeah.
You are differentiating you from it. You put the craving over there so you can observe it.
It's like you're taking this massive, invisible ghost possessing your body, and by pointing at it and describing it, you shrink it down into a very specific, boring rock sitting on a table across the room. It's no longer you, it's just a thing.
That captures it perfectly. The analytical process naturally dampens the emotional one. A craving is just a chemical wave of glutamate and dopamine. By the laws of biology, it has to come down. You just have to ride it out without throwing the gasoline of resistance onto it.
That 4-step technique is amazing for the immediate battle. But winning the long-term war requires a broader shift, right? Point Blank gets deeply philosophical here about how we live and connect.
He does. He actually includes a poem in the text. Let me read a piece of it. He writes, I breathe in stillness. I am the calm within, no longer just a wave.
I'm the calm within, no longer just a wave. That is powerful.
It illustrates the shift from being a victim of your biology to being the observer. And to maintain that long term, he mentions developing mindfulness observing without acting or judging. He also talks about connecting with others.
Like support groups.
Support groups, or just being known by people. Connection regulates the nervous system. And he talks about small habit shifts to slowly rewire those neural pathways.
But the ultimate philosophical stakes from Point Blank go way further. He pivots to confronting mortality itself. He says, time is the most valuable asset we own. Death is guaranteed, life is not. He says, master the 9.
Right.
But I have to ask, how does confronting our own mortality, remembering that death is guaranteed, actually help someone in the middle of a mundane struggle, like a sugar craving or a social media addiction?
It sounds extreme, but it's about leverage. If the biological drive pushing you toward a bad habit is a level 10, your why for resisting it needs to be an 11. And by bringing mortality into the picture, it radically reframes the stakes.
So you aren't just losing an hour to scrolling.
Exactly. This raises an important question about how we choose to spend our limited energy. You aren't just losing a day to a hangover. You are trading away your most valuable finite asset, your time on Earth. Every time you blindly give in, you are letting a glitch in your survival software steal the only currency you can never earn back.
That changes the entire framing. It makes the hard work of practicing that 4-step technique worth doing. So to summarize the journey you just took with us today, we started by unlearning the myth of willpower, realizing our brains are running a hijacked survival program.
We mapped out the dopamine and glutamate tagging system, learning how the brain confuses comfort with life or death necessity.
We explored how escaping the fight or flight backfire is crucial, since resisting the urge just spikes your cortisol and causes physical pain.
And we walked through that 4-step physical grounding technique to objectify cravings, rating it, locating it, describing it, and re-rating it.
So you now have a concrete tool to step out of the chemical wave and become the calm within. But that leaves us with one final, lingering question to ponder on your own. If you practice this technique and successfully reclaim all the time and mental energy currently hijacked by these daily survival loop cravings, who is the person you will become with that massive surplus of time? As Point Blank says, what will you do with the most valuable asset you have?
High blood pressure got you down? Ask your doctor if Zortofrenex is right for you. In clinical trials, Zortofrenex was proven to lower blood pressure. Ask your doctor before taking Zortofrenex. Women, pregnant women, and most men should not take Zortofrenex. Known side effects include dry mouth, upset stomach, mild death, blindness, massive heart attack, difficulty breathing, and rectal fungus. Almost all men who took Zortofrenex experienced a severe loss in sexual performance. This is normal. Please stop taking Zortofrenex immediately if you feel mild discomfort on or in testicles, as this can be a sign of a rare and extremely unpleasant side effect known as total scrotal implosion. If total scrotal implosion should occur, call your doctor right away. If you cannot move or talk due to the debilitating pain of total scrotal implosion, please have a loved one call your doctor. There is no cure for total scrotal implosion. Zortofrenex, always the right choice.
Thanks for listening. I am the Reverend Point Blank. You can catch us on YouTube, the Reverend Point Blank, or go to the website, wejuschillin.com. Peace and love.